What if I told you that without India, many nations would struggle to survive, not just economically, but politically, culturally, and even strategically? It sounds dramatic, but it's true. From the mountains of Nepal to the islands of the Maldives, from the deserts of the Gulf to the fragile borders of Afghanistan, India is more than just a neighbor. It is a lifeline. For decades, India has quietly shaped the fate of its region, and far beyond. It supplies food and medicines to struggling economies, fuels power grids in neighboring countries, and provides millions of jobs both at home and abroad. Its massive consumer market keeps trade flowing, while its military presence secures vital sea lanes that carry global energy supplies. Even India's cultural exports, Bollywood films, cricket, yoga, and a diaspora of over 30 million people act as soft power, binding nations in ways that numbers alone cannot capture. Dependency matters because it reveals power in its purest form. A nation's survival is not only about its own strength, but about the partners it cannot afford to lose. And for at least 11 countries, that partner is India. So today, we'll break down 11 nations that rely heavily on India for survival, exploring how trade, energy, remittances, security, and culture tie them to New Delhi. And more importantly, we'll ask, what happens if India pulls back? Because when one nation becomes the backbone of so many others, its rise isn't just national, it's global. 11. Afghanistan. For a nation battered by decades of war, instability, and foreign intervention, India has stood as one of Afghanistan's most reliable partners. In fact, India is Afghanistan's largest regional donor of development aid, pumping billions of dollars into projects that directly touch the lives of ordinary Afghans. From constructing roads like the Dalaram-Zaranj Highway to building schools, hospitals, and even the Afghan parliament building, India has left a tangible imprint across the country. Education has been another pillar of this relationship. Thousands of Afghan students have received scholarships to study in India, gaining access to quality higher education that is otherwise scarce at home. These students often return with skills that help rebuild Afghanistan's fragile economy, and with a cultural affinity for India. Strategically, India provides a critical counterbalance to Pakistan's influence in Afghanistan. While Islamabad has sought to dominate Afghan politics, India's soft power approach, aid, infrastructure, and cultural outreach has won it immense goodwill among Afghan citizens. But what if India withdraws? The consequences would be devastating. Afghanistan's already struggling economy would collapse further, education would wither, and China or Pakistan could rapidly fill the vacuum with their own interests at heart. In short, without India, Afghanistan would be left weaker, poorer, and even more vulnerable to foreign manipulation. 10. Nepal. For Nepal, India is not just a neighbor, it's an economic lifeline. Nearly 70% of Nepal's trade passes through India, making New Delhi the gatekeeper of its imports and exports. Since Nepal is landlocked, it depends on Indian ports for global access, from consumer goods to critical raw materials. Energy ties run just as deep. India supplies Nepal with fuel, electricity, and cross-border connectivity, ensuring industries and households remain powered. Additionally, millions of Nepali citizens work in India, sending back remittances that sustain families and boost Nepal's fragile economy. The cultural connection is equally profound. Hindu and Buddhist ties bind the two nations, and their open border allows free movement of people, fostering social and economic integration, but dependency comes with risks. In 2015, a blockade at the India-Nepal border led to severe shortages of fuel, medicine, and daily essentials, plunging the nation into crisis. Without India's support, Nepal would face economic isolation, trade paralysis, and an energy shock it could not endure. Quite literally, Nepal's survival depends on cooperation with India. 9. Bangladesh. Bangladesh's remarkable growth story is deeply intertwined with India. Today, India stands as Bangladesh's largest trade partner in South Asia and serves as a vital transit route for its exports and imports. With limited access to global trade corridors, Bangladesh leans heavily on India for connectivity to the rest of the world. Electricity is another area of dependence. India exports thousands of megawatts of power to Bangladesh, stabilizing its rapidly growing industrial and urban sectors. At the same time, cross-border water-sharing treaties, particularly over rivers like the Ganges, ensure Bangladesh's agricultural and food security. On security, India has played a central role in counter-terrorism and border stability, supporting Dhaka against extremist groups and insurgencies. If India were to step back, the results would be chaotic. Bangladesh would face crippling trade disruptions, widespread power shortages, and heightened security threats. Its meteoric rise as one of Asia's fastest-growing economies could falter overnight. Simply put, India is not just a neighbor to Bangladesh, it's a foundation of its stability. 8. Bhutan may be small, but its survival story is written with India's support. New Delhi is Bhutan's largest trade partner, aid donor, and economic ally. Almost every sector of Bhutan's economy is tied to India, from daily imports to development assistance. The most critical link is hydropower. Bhutan generates clean electricity, but sells nearly all of it to India, which provides steady revenue and sustains Bhutan's GDP. This symbiotic relationship means Bhutan thrives only as long as India remains its primary peer. On the defense front, India guarantees Bhutan's security and sovereignty, stationing troops to protect it from external threats, particularly Chinese encroachment along disputed Himalayan borders. Culturally and spiritually, India and Bhutan share strong ties rooted in Buddhism and ancient traditions. Without India, Bhutan's economy would collapse, and its independence could be seriously threatened by aggressive Chinese diplomacy and pressure. For Bhutan, India isn't just a friend, it's a shield. 7. Maldives. The Maldives, a picturesque island nation, hides its heavy dependence on India beneath turquoise waters and luxury resorts. For starters, Indian tourists form a huge share of its tourism market, which is the country's primary source of revenue. Direct air connectivity and cultural familiarity make India indispensable to the Maldivian economy. But beyond tourism, India is the Maldives' first responder in times of crisis. During the 2004 tsunami, the 2014 water shortage crisis, and even during COVID-19, India stepped in with medical aid, supplies, and disaster relief. Security is another pillar. The Maldivian military is trained and supported by India, which also provides surveillance and patrols to secure the island nation's vulnerable sea lanes. India has also invested in infrastructure, healthcare, and social projects, building hospitals, housing, and transport links. If India were to retreat, the Maldives would face a dangerous vacuum. Its economy would falter, its security would weaken, and China, already eyeing the islands through its Belt and Road projects, would likely step in. For the Maldives, India is not just a neighbor, but a lifeline that keeps both its economy and sovereignty afloat. 6. Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's recent economic meltdown revealed just how critical India is for its survival. When the island nation ran out of foreign reserves, faced fuel shortages, and struggled to pay for essentials, India stepped in as a lifeline. New Delhi extended billions in credit lines to supply fuel, medicines, and food, preventing total societal collapse. No other country provided such immediate and consistent relief. Beyond crisis aid, India remains one of Sri Lanka's largest trade partners and investors. From infrastructure projects to digital services, Indian companies inject capital and create jobs. Indian tourists also make up a significant portion of arrivals, sustaining the hospitality industry, one of Sri Lanka's biggest revenue generators. Strategically, Sri Lanka's position in the Indian Ocean sea lanes makes it vital for regional trade and security. India has invested in port modernization, shipping connectivity, and maritime surveillance to ensure stability. Without India, Sri Lanka would be forced to rely almost entirely on Chinese financing and influence, which often comes with heavy debt burdens and political strings attached. The result, economic collapse paired with strategic vulnerability. For Colombo, India is not just a partner. It is the anchor preventing total dependence on China. 5. Myanmar, sitting at the crossroads of South and Southeast Asia, is another country whose survival is intertwined with India. Despite its political turmoil, India has pursued cross-border trade and connectivity projects like the Caledon Multimodal Transit and the India-Myanmar-Thailand Highway, which promise to link Myanmar's economy with regional markets. Energy is another key dependency. India imports natural gas from Myanmar, giving Naypyidaw a steady customer and vital revenue. In return, Myanmar depends on India for consumer goods, medicines, and vaccines, especially during health crises like COVID-19. Security cooperation is equally critical. Both nations share a long and sensitive border plagued by insurgencies. India works closely with Myanmar's government to conduct counterinsurgency operations, helping stabilize regions that directly affect Myanmar's internal security. If India withdraws, Myanmar would become even more isolated and forced deeper into China's sphere of influence, where Beijing's projects often prioritize resource extraction over genuine development. India offers Myanmar balance, connectivity, and a partnership that respects its sovereignty. Without it, Myanmar risks becoming little more than a satellite state of China. 4. Mauritius may be small in geography, but its ties to India are enormous. India is the island's largest trade and investment partner, playing a central role in everything from finance to technology. Indian companies dominate sectors like IT, telecom, and pharmaceuticals, making India's presence indispensable. The connection is also deeply cultural. Over 60% of Mauritius's population is of Indian origin, creating a unique bond. Festivals like Diwali and traditions rooted in Indian heritage make the island's identity closely linked to the Indian subcontinent. Defense and maritime cooperation are equally crucial. The Indian Navy patrols Mauritian waters, provides training, and helps safeguard its exclusive economic zone against piracy and illegal fishing. If India were absent, Mauritius would not only lose its closest cultural partner, but also face serious security vulnerabilities. Economically, foreign investments could dry up, while strategically, it might be forced to depend more on powers like China or France. India's role ensures Mauritius thrives with both stability and sovereignty intact. 3. Seychelles. Like Mauritius, the Seychelles relies heavily on India for security and stability. Situated in a vital corridor of the Indian Ocean, these islands are vulnerable to piracy, illegal fishing, and external interference. The Indian Navy plays a leading role in maritime security operations, ensuring Seychelles waters remain safe. India has also supported Seychelles with infrastructure projects, medical aid, and capacity-building programs that strengthen its fragile economy. Tourism and trade links, boosted by Indian travelers and businesses, provide another steady stream of support. If India were to step away, Seychelles would face a security vacuum, opening the door to piracy and greater Chinese influence in its maritime domain. For a small island state, India's role is the difference between stability and vulnerability. 2. Singapore is often viewed as a global powerhouse of finance and trade, yet its success is quietly underpinned by Indian contributions. A large share of Singapore's workforce in IT, healthcare, and construction comes from India. These professionals, from software engineers to doctors, help maintain the city-state's world-class services. Economically, Singapore and India are strategic trade and investment partners. Indian startups receive funding from Singaporean investors, while Indian markets provide opportunities for Singaporean firms. Militarily, both nations cooperate in defense exercises and Indo-Pacific security frameworks, recognizing the importance of balancing China's rise. If India were not in the picture, Singapore would face labor shortages in critical sectors, slower economic connectivity with South Asia, and a weaker regional security balance. India's role ensures that Singapore remains plugged into a broader Asian network of manpower, trade, and defense. 1. The Gulf nations Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Oman. When it comes to survival, no region depends on India more than the Gulf. Millions of Indian workers form the backbone of Gulf economies. From skyscraper construction in Dubai to hospitals in Riyadh, Indians are present in every sector: construction, healthcare, engineering, hospitality, and services. These workers not only sustain Gulf economies, but also send tens of billions in remittances back to India, fueling growth on both sides. Culturally, Indian influence is everywhere in the Gulf. Bollywood movies, Indian food, and festivals dominate social life, making Indians central to the region's cultural fabric. With over 8 million Indians in the Gulf, they are often the largest expatriate community, providing both stability and a bridge of soft power. Trade flows reinforce this interdependence. While India relies on the Gulf for its energy security, importing vast amounts of oil and gas, the Gulf equally depends on India for food exports, medicines, textiles, and skilled labor. The relationship is symbiotic. India needs Gulf energy, and the Gulf needs India's people and products. What if India pulled back? The Gulf would face an immediate labor crisis, construction projects would stall, hospitals would be understaffed, and service industries would collapse. Economically, the region would slow down dramatically, while culturally it would lose a vital part of its identity. The Gulf may be rich in oil, but without Indian manpower and markets, its survival would be seriously compromised. Lessons and reflections. The story of these 11 nations reveals a profound truth. India is not just a rising power, it is a lifeline. From Afghanistan's roads and Bangladesh's electricity to Sri Lanka's food supplies and the Gulf's workforce, India quietly anchors the stability of entire regions. Dependency is not only about money or trade. It's about connectivity, culture, security, and resilience. India provides labor where it's needed, energy partnerships where they matter, aid in moments of crisis, and cultural bridges that foster long-term goodwill. This web of influence makes India more than a regional power. It makes India a global anchor whose importance will only grow as the world faces new economic and security challenges. The lesson here is clear. Underestimate India, and you overlook the silent force keeping many nations afloat. Closing call to action. We've just explored 11 countries that depend on India for survival, from Afghanistan's schools to the Gulf's skyscrapers, from Nepal's open border to Singapore's IT sector. Each story shows the same truth. India isn't just shaping its own destiny. It is shaping the future of dozens of nations. So, let me ask you, which country do you think depends on India the most? Is it the Gulf with its labor force, Sri Lanka with its crisis aid, or Nepal with its trade lifeline? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who want to understand India's growing role in the world. And stay tuned for our next video, Top 5 Ways India Could Become a Superpower by 2040, because the story of India isn't just about the past or present, it's about a future that could reshape the global order.